On my promotion day, my sister sent a thank you selfie from a resort I didn't book. Turns out, I did $3,200 on my card. I didn't confront her. I opened the app, hit dispute all, froze the card, and called the resort. At check-in, the staff asked for new payment. She texted, "What's going on?" I replied, "Wait for a call from my lawyer." On the day I finally got promoted, my sister sent me a selfie from a luxury beach resort I'd never been to, but apparently had just paid for. She was smiling with that fake influencer energy she always turned on when she knew she was getting something for free. White robe cocktail with one of those paper umbrellas. A palm tree perfectly centered in the background like she planned the whole thing. The caption underneath said, "Thanks for the treat. Big bro love you." My blood went cold. I hadn't spoken to her in over a week, not beyond the occasional dry "How are you" text. No talk of vacations, no requests, no hints, just the usual quiet, which with her usually meant trouble was about to show up wearing my name. I opened my banking app. I didn't even feel surprised at this point. $3,21864. Charged to my card that morning. Name of the transaction: Clearwater Paradise Resort. Room with ocean view. Spa package. Room service. 2 nights. Valet. The works. I stared at it for a while. Then I put my phone down and laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. Because every time I thought she'd hit her ceiling, she found another floor to crash through. She'd done stuff like this before, just never on this scale. I once found a $78 Uber ride she took across the city to go to some concert. Then there was the $190 Amazon order she swore was an accident. Oh, and that hair appointment she booked using my info for some Mother's Day surprise she claimed was for both of us. And each time the same thing. She'd deny it, get caught, cry, and my parents would beg me to be understanding. "She's your sister. She's going through a hard time. It's not like she stole a car." But this time it was a car. A $3,200 getaway car with a king-size bed and ocean view. I didn't call her. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to hear her voice twisting the story into something pitiful. I opened the credit card app and hit dispute all. Then I froze the card. Then I called the resort. She just checked in. The guy on the phone said the payment hadn't gone through after the freeze. I asked what happens next. He said they'd ask for a new card at the front desk. I said, "Perfect," and I hung up. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. First a call, then a text. "What's going on?" "The card isn't working." I replied, "Wait for a call from my lawyer." That was it. That was the moment something in me just shut off. Years of letting things slide, of biting my tongue for the sake of keeping the peace, of letting my parents convince me she'd grow out of it. She wasn't growing out of anything. She was getting better at it. And this time, I wasn't cleaning up after her. The next morning, I took a sick day and sat across from a lawyer named Brandon, who came highly recommended by a guy at work, someone who had once sued his own brother over a stolen inheritance. Brandon was sharp, methodical, and didn't waste time pretending things weren't what they clearly were. I laid it all out. The charges, the selfie, the pattern of smaller thefts over the years, the messages. I handed him my phone with the most recent text still on the screen. "Thanks for the treat, big bro." It didn't take much explaining. After going through it all, he leaned back and said, "This isn't just misuse. This is fraud. And if she's done it more than once, we can press harder." I asked him what my options were. He said we could take it to small claims for the exact amount, $3,218.64, but he suggested adding emotional damages and breach of trust. Total ask $6,000. I said do it. Felt strange how easy it was. Not morally, just logistically. I always thought that confronting her would be a messy, emotionally charged disaster, but filing the paperwork took 30 minutes. Brandon handled everything. I just signed, gave a short statement, and walked out of his office with a case number and a weird sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. By lunch, the text started again. Rapid-fire messages. She was no longer pretending it was a misunderstanding. She was panicking. "Jacob, seriously, what are you doing? Can we please talk? You're taking it too far." Mom said, You're blowing this up on purpose. This is family stuff, not legal stuff. Then came the voice messages. I didn't listen to them. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what they'd sound like. Forced tears, empty guilt, maybe a promise to pay me back eventually. All versions of the same lie. But around 3:00 p.m., my phone lit up again. This time it was my mom. I let it ring. Then she called again and again. I finally answered, expecting anger. What I got was worse. Disappointment. She started with, "You can't possibly be serious about suing your sister." I stayed quiet. Let her keep going. She didn't mean to hurt you. She made a bad decision. We raised you better than this, Jacob. Not everything needs a courtroom. Sometimes family just needs to talk it out. I asked her why they were never this stern with her. She didn't answer that. Instead, she told me to consider how this would make the family look, that we should keep things in-house, that I should be the bigger person like I always was. I told her I wasn't bigger anymore. I was done carrying her mistakes. Then I hung up. The following morning, Brandon submitted the claim officially. The court accepted the case later that week. She had 10 days to respond. And right when things finally started to feel stable again, no new charges, no calls. I got a knock on my apartment door. It was her. No warning, no text, just standing there in jeans and a hoodie, clutching her phone like it held the script to a last-minute apology to her. I didn't say anything. I just opened the door wide enough for her to speak, but not enough to invite her in. She said she needed to talk. Said she'd realized how wrong it was. That she was scared, ashamed, and had started looking for ways to pay me back. She sounded calmer than I expected. She didn't cry. She wasn't defensive. Caught me off guard. She asked if we could go inside and talk. Just 10 minutes. She said she didn't want this to go to court, that she couldn't afford a lawyer, and that she had been looking into payment plans. She even said she was thinking about going to therapy. I don't know what it was. Maybe I wanted to believe her. Maybe I just wanted to feel like she was finally owning up. So I let her in. And for a brief, stupid moment, I thought that maybe something had finally changed. She stood in my kitchen like a guest who knew she'd overstayed her welcome before she even took off her shoes. I didn't ask her to sit, but she did anyway, right at the kitchen table where I usually ate breakfast and read emails. The same table I used when I filled out the paperwork to sue her. She started slow. Said she came to apologize. Said she understood what she did was wrong. She didn't try to blame anyone. No talk about stress. No playing the victim. It was like someone had handed her a script labeled redemption arc. She said the trip wasn't meant to hurt me. That she wasn't thinking straight. That she'd had a breakdown and wanted to disappear for a weekend and used the only card she thought would work. She admitted she knew it was wrong. She kept her voice calm. No theatrics. She said she was ashamed. It was almost convincing. She told me she wanted to pay me back. Said she was already looking into payment plans and even pulled out her phone to show me $417 in a savings account. Her way of proving she was serious. She talked about therapy, a new job she'd applied for, how she wanted to get her life back on track. I said I'd think about it, that I needed time. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't trust. But it was the most civil conversation we'd had in years. After she left, I sat there for a while, just staring at the spot where she'd been sitting. Part of me wanted to believe it, that she changed, that maybe losing my trust had finally hit her harder than any lecture or scolding ever did. Then, at 1:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Declined transaction $1,500. Merchant Lucky Bear Casino Online. My stomach dropped. I didn't even have to check the details, but I did anyway. It was from an old credit card, one I rarely used anymore, one that I hadn't frozen because I never gave it to anyone. Except 2 months ago, she helped me set up my new phone after I dropped the old one. I remembered sitting on the couch while she tapped through iCloud settings. I hadn't thought twice about it. I was still staring at the alert when another message came in, this time from her. No apology, no confusion, just this. That one's for dragging me into court. Consider it a little revenge. I didn't reply. I didn't give her the satisfaction of another fight. I just took a screenshot, called the police, and forwarded everything to Brandon. She was arrested the next day. charged with fraud and unauthorized use of financial information. With the previous court case still pending, the second offense sealed her fate. She got 15 days in county jail. Short but enough. Enough to make it real. The restraining order came next. She was legally barred from coming near me, messaging me, calling me. Only my parents were allowed to speak to her on my behalf, and only if it involved something urgent. That's when the calls started. From my mom, from my dad, back-to-back voicemails. I didn't even have to listen to them. I knew the tone, knew the script. You didn't have to do this. She's your sister. You should have protected her, not punished her. She needs help, not a jail cell. They weren't calling to ask if I was okay. They were calling to clean up her mess again. Only this time, I wasn't moving an inch. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a judge. Brandon spoke clearly, calmly, laid out the charges and the evidence, her history, the screenshots, the fact that she never even tried to deny the second theft. She didn't show up. The judge ruled in my favor. Full repayment, $321,864. Additional $2,000 for stress and damages. And that was that. Legally, it was over. But I knew I'd never see the money. Not all of it. Anyway, Brandon said the judgment would follow her, impact her credit, show up on background checks. It would haunt her long after I'd moved on. And I was done. She was out of my life completely, but not out of trouble because just a few weeks later, I found out exactly why all of this had spiraled in the first place. A few weeks after the judgment, I started getting updates from Brandon. Mostly procedural stuff. Where the debt had been logged, the next steps in collection, all that. I asked him straight up if I'd ever see a cent. He gave me a polite but honest maybe. I didn't care anymore. It wasn't about the money. It hadn't been for a while. That same week, I got a text from my dad. It was short. She's going through something. Can we talk? I didn't answer. He called an hour later. I let it ring. He left a voicemail that started with the usual guilt trip. Family understanding, second chances, but then he said something that caught my attention. She's in trouble, Jacob. Real trouble. I listened again just to be sure I heard it right. Then I called Brandon and asked him if there had been any recent updates I didn't know about. There hadn't. Whatever trouble she was in, it wasn't legal. 2 days later, I got a text from my cousin Mark. We barely talked, so I knew this wasn't casual. You hear about Jenna? That's how I found out the rest. The gambling, the payday loans, the fake job interviews she'd been staging to keep my parents from asking questions. According to Mark, it started months ago, right around the time she was saving for a trip, and asked for that weird Venmo transfer from my mom. Money, she said, was for a rental deposit, but had actually gone straight into a crypto casino site. She'd racked up debt with 4 different microloan apps. None of them were traditional lenders. These were sketchy, high-interest platforms that didn't care about your credit score, just that you kept paying daily, and she had been paying at first. She sold her TV, her laptop, borrowed from friends, blamed her bank for freezing her card. At one point, she pawned a bracelet my grandmother had left her. The only thing she'd ever said she'd never part with. It explained everything. Why she took the vacation. Why she tried the second charge even after pretending to be sorry. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving a point she was drowning. My parents had known for about a month. They didn't tell me because they didn't want to influence the court case, which was laughable considering they'd spent the entire time pressuring me to drop it. They were helping her now, financially trying to clean things up, pay off her debts, get her into therapy. I wasn't surprised. They always did this. Sweep the broken glass under the rug and act like nobody was bleeding. They asked me if I'd be willing to see her just once. Not to forgive, just to talk. I told them no. I told them I didn't want to know anything else. That she was no longer part of my life. And I meant it. That was the last time I spoke to either of them outside of birthdays or holidays. And even those were limited to brief texts. They didn't push after that. They just stopped including me in anything that involved her. Mark kept me updated whether I wanted him to or not. He said she was getting worse. Had stopped showing up to therapy. Was borrowing money again. Started lying to friends and got caught. She was circling the drain. And I wasn't going with her. After the court ruling, everything got quiet. but it wasn't peace. It was that uncomfortable loaded silence you get before a storm or after a funeral when no one knows what to say. So they say nothing at all. My parents stopped calling. Not completely, but it was obvious. The weekly check-ins dried up. My mom stopped sending those long text paragraphs about her garden or what book club was reading. My dad didn't call on Sundays like he used to. No one said it, but I knew what was happening. They had chosen their side. I wasn't surprised. I was the strong one, the one who didn't need help, the one who handled things on his own. Jenna, she was always the crisis, and they always protected the crisis. Mark was the only one who still talked to me like nothing had changed. He didn't take sides, but he didn't sugarcoat anything either. He was the one who told me about the loans. How Jenna had racked up debt on 4 or 5 different microloan apps, sometimes borrowing from one to pay off another. She'd taken out loans using fake job info, claimed she was freelancing, told one lender she was working remotely for a startup based in Germany. It was all lies. She'd been gambling, too. Online casinos, underground poker games, even slot machine apps that gave out fake bonus money for watching ads. But that wasn't the worst of it. According to Mark, she'd been lying to our parents about getting help while using their money to keep her accounts alive. She told them she was catching up on rent, but her lease had been canceled a month earlier. That was when she moved in with some guy, a friend of a friend she barely knew. His name was Tyler or Travis or something, and apparently he didn't have a job, a license, or even a working phone. But Jenna called him a calming presence. That was how she described him. Calming. That's what she said about the guy who helped her set up a crypto wallet. My parents were in deep now. My dad took a chunk out of his IRA to pay off one of her larger loans, close to $6,000. My mom started dipping into their emergency fund. They still believed she'd turn it around, that she was just going through a phase. They talked like she was 23 again, not 32. They stopped updating me altogether when it became clear I wasn't jumping back into the mess with them. They made a group chat with just the 3 of them. I found out because my mom accidentally sent a recipe intended for Jenna to our old family thread, then unsent it a minute later. I didn't respond, not to the message, not to the silence. I was out. Then one afternoon, I came home and found an envelope stuffed halfway into my mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name and handwriting I'd recognize even in a dark room. Inside was a single folded piece of paper and a $20 bill. The note said, "I know I can't ask for anything. I'm not even sure why I'm writing. I just keep thinking about how I ruined everything. Not just with you, with Mom and Dad too. They won't say it, but they're scared. I can feel it. I don't know how to fix anything. I wish I could go back. I really hope you're happy. You deserve to be." No name, no apology, just a note that sounded like someone trying to explain something they didn't understand themselves. I didn't throw it away. I didn't frame it either. I just folded it back up, slid it into the drawer where I keep receipts I might need someday, and left it there. I used the $20 to tip the guy who brought my dry cleaning the next morning. I never told my parents about the letter. I knew they'd spin it into some symbol of hope or growth, but I knew better. That $20 wasn't a peace offering. It was a goodbye she didn't have the courage to say out loud. The next weekend, I went upstate, a cabin I'd booked months earlier, not even thinking. I'd end up going alone. It was cold and quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you hear things you didn't know were still inside you. The second night, I sat by the fire and thought about everything about her. About the years I wasted trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. About the way my parents chose her chaos over my boundaries every single time. And I realized I didn't hate her. I didn't even want revenge anymore. I just wanted distance. And now I had it. That was the real win. A month passed. The cold settled in. The court case was behind me. The texts had stopped. Even Mark had gone quiet. It was strange how normal things felt again. Work was steady. My apartment was clean. And I was finally sleeping through the night without checking my bank accounts every morning. Then out of nowhere I got an email. Subject: confirming address for delivery. It was from an online luxury boutique I'd never ordered from, confirming a $1,497.62 purchase for a leather handbag and a pair of designer heels, shipping to my apartment. I didn't even blink. I called the company immediately. flagged it as fraud, and got the charge reversed within the hour. But the question wasn't how. It was why. My financials were locked down tighter than a vault. I changed passwords, deleted saved info, enabled every kind of two-factor authentication you can think of, except one account, my old Apple ID. She still had access. It was stupid. I changed the password. Sure. But months ago, I'd added her email when she claimed she couldn't log into her own iCloud and needed mine just to check something. She must have kept the access somehow. Maybe downloaded a backup. Maybe something else. She hadn't just tried to steal from me again. She tried to make it look like I bought her a gift. A thank you. Maybe a twisted form of reconciliation. Or maybe it was just another scam. Maybe she thought if it looked like a friendly purchase, I wouldn't flag it. I reported it again, called Brandon, filed another fraud report, added it to the existing judgment. I didn't call my parents. I knew what I'd hear, but this time I did something I hadn't done before. I called the boutique's customer service line and asked if they had a name attached to the order. The rep hesitated, said it wasn't policy. I pushed just enough to sound like someone who knew his rights. Eventually, she said, "The first name listed under the customer notes is Jenna." I hung up, sat in silence for a bit. Then I packed a box. Inside it, I put a copy of the court ruling, a printed copy of the fraud report, and a short letter. The next time you try to steal from me, it won't be 15 days. It'll be years. This is the last time you get to use my name for anything. And if you ever come near me or this address again, you'll be dealing with more than just police. I mailed it to her last known address. I didn't expect a response, but a week later, I got one. A voicemail. Her voice slurred. Maybe hi, maybe just tired. You ruined everything. I hope it was worth it. Click. No tears, no fake apologies. Just bitterness. The kind that runs deep. The kind that doesn't fade. I didn't save the voicemail. I blocked the number and that was it. That was the last I ever heard from my sister. Mark texted me 2 months later to say she disappeared. Not in the dramatic sense. Just stopped showing up, stopped answering. Left her phone at her boyfriend's place and vanished. No one knew where she was. Not even our parents. They only reached out once after that. My mom left a voicemail asking if I'd seen or heard anything. Said they were worried. Said she might be in trouble. I didn't call back. Whatever hole she dug next, it wasn't my job to fill it. And for the first time, I felt nothing about that. Not guilt, not worry, just freedom. It had been nearly 4 months since she disappeared. No calls, no texts. My parents stopped asking. Mark hadn't mentioned her. I started to believe it was over, that she'd either gone underground, started over, or crashed somewhere too far for any of us to reach. Then last week, I got a Facebook message request from an account with no profile photo, no friends, just one message. It said, "You were right about everything. I don't hate you anymore, but I know why you hate me. I'm sorry, Jacob. That's all." I didn't respond. I didn't report the account. I didn't even block it. I just left it there, unread, sitting like a tombstone for everything that came before. And that was enough.